And welcome to the Real Red Reaction Show here on ESPN Lincoln, FM 1015, 1480 AM. We're also streaming devices through ESPNLincoln.com and also on Facebook and Twitter for ESPN Lincoln, KFOR, Kicks 96.9. We'll be going on the air shortly here on ESPN Lincoln once the Florida-Georgia game is completed officially. And so here we are. We're reacting to Nebraska-Illinois today, as Illinois comes away with a 26-9 victory over the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Jeff Moats, joined by Connor Clark, Elijah Herbal. We'll have JP joining us here in a little bit, along with Chris Schmidt and a few others coming up here in a matter of moments. And I think everybody can agree where the turning point likely was today and where Nebraska was within reach of Illinois, especially in the first half and even in the early part of the second half. And the injury for Casey Thompson, to me, stands out as number one. Number two, the interception that was thrown by Chubba Purdy really shifted that momentum back toward Illinois. And granted, Illinois' defense was tough for much of the afternoon. They're very, very well balanced and sound. Illinois' offense was exposed a little bit, I thought, but they were still pretty stout too. But I think those were the couple of turns, I think, for Nebraska today, and how things turned out for them and how it ended up for Illinois here coming into Lincoln with a road victory.
Well, I want to start this off by giving credit to the winners, Illinois. They played a damn good football game today, especially their defense. The defense wasn't perfect, and I think whenever you see, this defense is number one in the country in all these scoring factors, you think maybe they're a little bit overrated. But where the defense made their money today for Illinois was in their tackling. Their safeties and their secondary were phenomenal tacklers today. Really just shut down anything Nebraska had going. Whenever there were errors in coverage, they were able to make up with their great tackling. There's only one missed tackle I can remember distinctly from Illinois, and that was on that play to Travis Vokolek that ended up being a touchdown. So Illinois could make up for a lot of their mistakes through really sound tackling, and full credit to them. They can only control what they can control, and they couldn't control the fact that excuse me. Oh, it's Motzi coming back in the studio. I had to make sure I didn't have to work there. They couldn't control the fact that Casey Thompson would leave the game due to injury. That's what the turning point was for this Husker offense, night and day between Thompson to Chubba Purdy and Logan Smothers. And I'm not sure why Logan Smothers, we didn't see more of him in the second half. That's a big question. I'd love maybe we can get Mark Whipple or Mickey Joseph to speak on that, because I know we were all watching the ABC broadcast, and the ABC broadcast said that Mickey coming out of the locker room said that it was going to be Logan Smothers. He was going to be the guy coming out and starting the second half. And then we didn't see Logan Smothers once in the second half, despite a lot of ineffectiveness from Chubba Purdy. That's a question I definitely want to get answered in postgame, is why didn't we see Logan Smothers in that second half with how ineffective Chubba Purdy was? But I don't think you can put this on the guys like Logan Smothers and Chubba Purdy. They had to step into a tough situation. Casey Thompson, what was your hope at winning? And I think he was leading the offense pretty well in the first half. As soon as he went out, this game flipped on its head. The Husker offense could not do anything, and Illinois could just play their comfortable offense that they played all year, which is hand the ball to Chase Brown, put the ball in the hands of Tommy DeVito, and let him make easy throws. And from that moment on, you were never going to beat this Illinois football team. The key for Nebraska today was to get Illinois out of their comfort zone. You saw it in the first half. Illinois was playing a little bit tight whenever Nebraska took the lead, but then that interception injury from Casey Thompson changed the whole complexion of the game. Illinois could then go settle back into what they're used to playing this year, which is easy football. Hand the ball off, let your offense line make some work, make the easy throws when they're there. They weren't tested from any point on from there. So I'll give credit to Illinois, but this game turned on ahead whenever Casey Thompson left the football game, and Nebraska really never stood a chance after that.
Yeah, it was a definite struggle for them the rest of the way without him in there, and it just shows you how important Casey Thompson is, not only as the quarterback, but the leader of that offense too, and making sure things happen either in the run game or the pass game. Again, we're on the Real Red Reaction Show, ESPN Lincoln, also on our social media pages at ESPN Lincoln, KFOR, Kicks 96.9, Jeff Moat, Elijah Herbal, Connor Clark, and Chris Schmidt joins us here from walking across the street from Memorial Stadium, I think heading over to the Champions Club, and hear that.
I got shut down by Junior, so I didn't have
you
a
did?
pass. Oh, yeah. He sweet revenge, all those groundings, right?
Schmitty, we were just talking here to begin the broadcast.
So I'm just making my way, I don't know.
Downtown?
I'll find a spot.
Well, Schmitty, we were just as you joined us here, we were just talking about the two turning points of the game. Again, happened to be where Casey Thompson goes down with the hand injury. The other thing being that the Chuba Purdy interception really just really turned the tide in favor of Illinois. So those are the two things that, again, we've kind of discussed already that really stand out more than anything else. I was looking at some of the post-game notes here from Keith Mann that just came down here moments ago. Still trying to scan and see the latest with Casey Thompson, but it looks like nothing in terms of his status in terms of the injury. It looked like it was a hand injury on his throwing hand. He went down and did not come back in. But a couple of side notes today. This is the third time that Illinois has won in Lincoln. So they are 9-3 all time in Lincoln. 3-9 rather, 3 one-time losses against Nebraska and Lincoln all time. So their third win in Lincoln in the series history. So that's something interesting of note. And then again, you mentioned here a moment ago, Elijah, that Travis Vokalek had that 56-yard touchdown reception, which that was a nice pass play that was set up for him. And again, there was so much coverage heading over toward Casey Thompson. He got the ball off just in time, and just a great grab, and Vokalek with a nice little trot down the sideline to get into the end zone. So, I mean, there were some highlights there. Things looked very promising early, but again, the injury to Thompson and the interception thrown by Chuba Purdy really just cooled things down for Nebraska after that.
Well, the game changed complexion completely when Casey Thompson left the football game. It went from Nebraska standing a chance to, I think, everyone knowing that Nebraska was screwed. The offense couldn't do anything. I mean, one of my roommates fell asleep for the second half. I have a cup of coffee for this post-game show. That thing turned into an absolute snooze fest when Casey Thompson left the football game. It was not good. I don't think anyone in their right mind really thought Nebraska stood a chance from that point on. I think it was one total first down after Casey Thompson left the football game. Yeah, I guess if you count that late hit penalty, then that'd be your second first down. But just nothing going offensively for Nebraska, and Illinois wasn't tested from that point on. So we don't really know what would happen. But I guess you have to give credit to Illinois' defense, because the Nebraska offense line was doing well early, and then the one chance they really got to get some pressure in Casey Thompson's face, they knocked him out of the football game. And as a defensive line, you don't want to see injuries, but that is why you play the football game. You want to get those licks in on the quarterback when you can on third down. So I think you have to give credit to Illinois for that as well. I said it in the pregame show that Casey was going to get walloped today, and only got walloped once, but got walloped once, and it knocked him out of the football game, and it completely changed the complexion of the football game. And while it's an injury, and sometimes you can go, man, that's a fluke injury. I wonder what happened if that injury doesn't happen. You got to look at the offensive line. That's been the problem all year for this Husker football team. And though they were playing better in the first quarter, as soon as they slip up, it knocks the quarterback out of the football game, and it completely screws your chances to go have any sort of say late in this game to go make a play and go win this football game. And it comes down to the offensive line again. So the offensive line looked a little bit better early in this football game, and then the whole offense sputtered. I don't think you can look at the offensive line after that, but the offensive line is the reason Casey Thompson got knocked out of this football game. And then ultimately, I think they're the reason Nebraska lost this football game, despite the fact that I don't think I'm going to grade them as an F from this football game. That they were all right, but the fact that your one play in the biggest moment gets your starting quarterback knocked out of the football game and inevitably loses you the football game, you can't give this offense line a passing grade for that reason alone.
And let's talk about Illinois here. This is a team in year 2 under Brett Bielema that has really made strides. Think about where they were. They were 5-7 in year 1 a year ago. And now here they are. They're now 7-1. They're sitting atop the leaderboard in the Big Ten West. Give them credit. I mean, they are a pretty scrappy football team. And I know there might be a few people out there that weren't really impressed with them, but I think Nebraska exposed them a little bit to a degree. But this is still they're a better football team. They were a better football team today in a lot of aspects compared to what Nebraska did, especially in the second half. But from this point forward, it's not going to get any easier for Illinois, because I believe they got a game with Michigan coming up here in a few weeks that's going to really test them. But the thing is, though, the Big Ten West, there could be so many different things that happen here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We could see a totally different shift in things, especially who's going to move up to second or third place. But I think with Nebraska, if there was a game that you had to lose in this final 5-week stretch, it would be to Illinois, just simply because of how they've been this season. A much better football program. And the pass defense, the run defense was tremendous, especially in the second half when it really got locked down and locked in on what Nebraska was trying to accomplish, either throwing the ball or running the ball. But I think Nebraska now can look at next week against Minnesota as an opportunity to get back on track. I think you can look at the final 4 games in particular, and I think those are winnable games for Nebraska, especially if they play like they did against Purdue, which was a 6-point loss. If they play like they did against Indiana, anything like that. If they play like that, I certainly think if they're going to win those games, they're going to be close games. If they were to lose those games, maybe they're going to be close losses. But it's hard to say, but you can assume that right now. But it could be a totally different thing here in about a week or two. You just don't know with this football team.
The thing is, and Connor, I promise to let you jump in here in a second, is you say if they play more like Indiana and they play more like they do against Purdue, the problem is I'm not sure I can see them playing like that here on out, because the teams that Nebraska has left on their schedule play a hell of a lot more like Illinois than they do like Purdue or like Indiana. So that's worrisome. And another thing to check is how long is Casey Thompson going to be out for? Looked to me like he was going back to the locker room to get x-rays. If he's got any sort of bones broken on his throwing hand or throwing arm, that is a real problem. It probably means he might be out for the season. With how much time you have left, that could be a real issue. There's a lot of question marks right now. And right now, Nebraska faces a serious uphill battle to get anywhere close to a bowl game. Because as I said, these teams are built a hell of a lot more like Illinois than they are built like the other teams that Nebraska has beaten so far this season. When you look at Minnesota, the question is Tanner Morgan and Mo Ibrahim, how healthy are they going to be? But I think they outclassed Nebraska on the lines of scrimmage. You look at Wisconsin, they're finally starting to find their stride, under Jim Leonard, and their lines of scrimmage are always something you got to deal with. So that's going to be tough. And Braylon Allen running the football, despite the fact that their offense hasn't looked like a typical Wisconsin offense. I know deep down they are still Wisconsin, so that's scary. And then Iowa doesn't have much of an offense, but they don't. They have a phenomenal defense, and that might be a 9-6 slugfest. And from what I've seen from Nebraska over the past couple of years, I'm not sure I like Nebraska in a 9-6 slugfest. They're going to find a way to shoot themselves in the foot. So I look at that, and it's an uphill battle to get to a bowl game, and I don't think 3-9 is out of the question right now with the teams that you have left, how they're constructed. Where Nebraska is weak is their offensive line and their defensive line, and that's what those teams left on Nebraska's schedule love to target. And definitely getting ahead of ourselves here, talking about a bowl game, and we got to get back and talk a little more Illinois. But my concern level after today is high with Nebraska remaining what's left on their schedule, with what they can still do with that. Because if I'm a betting man, I think 3-9 is a hell of a lot more likely than even 5-7.
Well, I will agree with you. The concern now, and Connor, go ahead and chip in. Let's get your thoughts on the situation too before I proceed. Go ahead, Connor, and share your thoughts.
Well, obviously the big takeaway from the game today is the injury to Casey Thompson. It's hard to not sit here and wonder, what could have happened if he was healthy for the entire game, but obviously that's not the reality of the situation. You have to give credit to Illinois. You mentioned it, Jeff, last year 5-7. Now 7-1 a year later. Bielema has done a fantastic job with that entire group over there in Champaign. But going forward, you're right. The teams left on Nebraska's schedule play more like Illinois than they do like Purdue. And, that's also interesting, too, because Illinois is probably, quote-unquote, biggest game left on their schedule in regards of Big Ten championship aspirations is Purdue. But, going forward, Nebraska's got to win Minnesota, they got to win Wisconsin, and they got to win Iowa, I think, because I don't think they have a chance against Michigan in the Big House. I think that's already written off. And I think that's their only path to maybe 6-6. I know, again, as Elijah mentioned, that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I like what I saw from the defense today as a whole. 26 points, that can win you a ball game in the Big Ten Conference, and especially what they did to Chase Brown. Now, I know he still had over 150 yards or so, but hey, at least he didn't gash you for 250, right, as he's done to other teams. So I think that Nebraska's defense made strides to make sure that the offense had a chance to be in it. It was just unfortunate to the injury of Casey Thompson, and I don't understand why, and I know Elijah alluded to this earlier, I don't understand why we didn't see Logan Smothers at all. I think he should have been the first one off the bench.
And and we'll continue that thought here in a moment. And if you can, Connor, let's get on the air. Let's get over the air here and get on ESPN Lincoln. I know we were having that Florida-Georgia game that was running a little bit later than normal, so we'll get on the air here and pause when we get on here and let everybody know what's going on in terms of the Real Red Reaction Show. But I think Logan Smothers, no doubt, would be an option to consider to be a quarterback, and he's more run-oriented versus the pass. And we know Mark Whipple is a guy that highly favors the pass offense compared to the run. But in certain situations, and we saw Anthony Grant today do a terrific job, and running the football at times, especially early on, had some big gains. But then when you go with the pass play, you had either an interception. That was early on for Casey Thompson. And, of course, Chuba Purdy threw that interception in the second half. That really just deflated everything. But you need somebody like Smothers who has experience as a starter. He started against Iowa a year ago. I thought he did a terrific job in that Iowa game last year. And why not put him in? And if the passing game's not working, why not run the football? If you need somebody that can run the ball aside from Anthony Grant or whoever else you put in, and Ramir Johnson, who got in there for a brief moment this afternoon, why not a guy like Logan Smothers? I think now the battle or the debate's going to take place now. Who's going to be the quarterback starting next week against Minnesota? Is it going to be Smothers? Is it going to be Purdy? Just being the armchair that I am right now, I would probably say if you want to be in a comfort zone going up against a team like Minnesota, who is traditionally here in the last several years been tough or comparable to a team like Iowa, who Logan Smothers faced, why not use Logan Smothers as your starter if Casey Thompson is going to be out? Why not?
And I'm no doctor, but from what I saw from Casey's reaction to that injury, that for some reason struck me as something season-ending. He something was very seriously wrong. The way he was looking at his hand, and I don't want to speculate because I'm definitely not a doctor, but it didn't look good. Just the way he was looking at his hand, it almost looked like something wasn't syncing up with how his hand felt versus how it looked. He looked like he couldn't move it at all and headed back to the locker room. That's not a good thing. And we'll wait and hear what the coaching staff has to say. That's probably something we're going to have to wait till Monday
and
to get an official update on.
All right. And we're on the air now, Connor, over on ESPN Lincoln. Are we on?
Let's head to a really quick break, and then we will come out of the break over the air.
All right.
Okay.
So what we'll do is that we'll pause with our stream here in just a moment. We'll stay silent, and then we'll come back on with our coverage over the air, too, on ESPN Lincoln. Go ahead really quick.
Quick break. And I think whenever we come back, we should have Chris Schmidt all set up from the single barrel in downtown Lincoln. So I think he'll be joining us whenever we get on the air on ESPN Lincoln.
And then we'll also have JP. He'll be down at the presser with Coach Joseph and the players. We'll have that and comments as well coming up here on the Real Red Reaction Show as we pause to get on ESPN Lincoln.
8925 or online at approvedbyjoe.com, approvedbyjoe.com, www.approvedbyjoe.com.
All terms subject to approval. Some minimum requirements.
If you work remote, Staples has you covered.
Stylish office decor to turn my finished basement into a complete workspace solution.
Staples has you covered.
A desk that's all business, but not too businessy.
Staples has you covered with remote workspace solutions. And now at Staples, save 25% on all desks, storage and filing products, chair mats, lighting, decor, and desk accessories when you buy a chair. Explore solutions for your remote workspace at Staples. The working and learning store. Ends 10/29. In-store only. Exclusions apply.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services. Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help. Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
You served your country. Now let VA serve you.
You can't get much for $5 these days. Unless you go to Wendy's for a $5 Biggie Bag. Get your choice of double stack, junior bacon cheeseburger, or crispy chicken BLT, plus 4-piece nugs, fries, and a drink, all for just $5. That was smooth, wasn't it? That's how you're going to feel when you get that Biggie Bag at Wendy's.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Includes 4-piece nuggets, small soft drink, and small fry. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
Technology lets you access a personal trainer from home, like on this exercise mirror.
Less talking, more squatting.
But to keep your hybrid workforce in shape, you need more than technology.
And kick. and jump?
You need PCs powered by Intel vPro, custom configured by CDW. Hardware-based security and remote management make it easy to protect and monitor PCs from anywhere.
Wait, don't turn me off.
Intel vPro makes secure remote management possible. CDW makes it powerful. Learn more at cdw.com/vpro.
ESPN Lincoln's Real Red Reaction Show, live with your calls, opinions, and rants, all uncensored. Get it all out there. Say what you need to say without limits. The Real Red Reaction Show, powered by Hail Varsity.
Say your say now at 402-466-3776 or tweet your thoughts at ESPN Lincoln.
Only from ESPN Lincoln, 101.5 FM and 1480 AM.
And it is the Real Red Reaction Show here on ESPN Lincoln, FM 101.5, 1480 AM. Also on our social media pages via StreamYard for ESPN Lincoln, KFOR, and Kicks 96.9. Jeff Moats, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal, and Connor Clark with you here as we get ready to bring in your comments and get your thoughts on the football game today. Again, Nebraska falling to number 17 Illinois, 26-9. We do have at least one caller waiting on the phone. We'll get to that call here in just a moment. Chris Schmidt joins us here. And Schmitty, I don't know if you were listening to us at all initially when we were on the StreamYard feed, but we were talking about the two big turning points of the game. Obviously, Casey Thompson's hand injury going down with that. We presume it's a hand injury. Secondly, the Chuba Purdy interception that was thrown just really shifted everything back in the direction of Illinois the rest of the way. You were down there. What's your assessment, your thoughts on today's outcome?
Schmitty's having some microphone issues, it would seem.
Yeah, we see he's got his.
He can't hear us.
We can't hear him. Apparently, he can't hear us. So he is dropped out, and we'll get back with him here in a moment.
Soon, yeah. I'll work on some.
We got we got Jeff on the line listening in on ESPN Lincoln. Jeff, go ahead, share your thoughts about the game today. Hello, Jeff. Jeff, you there?
Yeah, hi. I didn't know. I really enjoyed the first quarter, and I really enjoyed the first half. I thought even though we were down at halftime, we still had a chance to come back and win the ball game. I really liked how in the first half our defense really held their offense, their leading rusher. Wow, the second half, things really turned on us. We shot ourselves in the foot. I hope Thompson's going to be okay. I never like to see anybody get injured. But that first half, do you guys see it the way I and the people who sat around me, that there was reason for hope going in at halftime?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yes and no. I would say that there was the hope from how the team was playing, but I think that you knew, at least I knew sitting there watching, that if Casey Thompson wasn't turning that football game, Nebraska didn't have a chance, because the completions from Casey to Palmer have been pretty much the entire offense this whole year. And Nebraska had a little bit more through the year, but I think as soon as a backup quarterback came in, Illinois knew they could sell it to stop the run, because any other quarterback was not going to be in their defense. So there was some optimism in how Nebraska was playing before Casey left the football game, but as soon as Casey Thompson left the football game, I knew if he wasn't getting back in there, I didn't think Nebraska really stood a chance of getting back into it.
Go ahead, Connor.
Well, and I think, too, that one thing that I want to point out is the fact that there was still, optimism, not knowing whether or not Thompson was going to return to the game. But even if he did, he wasn't really playing that well to begin with either. He had a couple of interceptions, obviously one of them on the injury, but he wasn't playing really his best game. Him and Palmer were not on the same page on that first drive. So the fact that you felt like Nebraska had a chance to try and pull this thing off with Casey Thompson back there not playing his best football is a little encouraging, knowing what can happen if he does play his best football. But again, obviously that injury to his hand just derails that entire topic of conversation, which is just really unfortunate.
I thought there were chances for Nebraska, and it looked pretty good heading into halftime, that they probably could get something going in the second half. And Illinois finally figured out what they were able to do to stop Nebraska on the run. They also did some pretty good pass coverage. Again, their defense is one of the best in the country. But there was still some optimism there that Nebraska could maybe turn this thing around and maybe get a field goal to get closer and cut that margin down even more. But, after, as we've been alluding to, what happened with Thompson and again, that interception from Purdy, it was blatant, in my opinion, right there, that Nebraska would not be able to recover and not win that game today.
Let's see if Schmitty, can you hear us now?
I got you. You guys got me okay?
Yeah, you sound like you're in the back of a room, though.
Best we can do. So I'm back here at the Single Barrel. No, when Thompson went down, it changed everything. Guys, Nebraska's defense played well enough to win. Brown hit that 150 number, but it wasn't, a gash fest. He had one run of 20 yards and a couple more of 17, but Nebraska's defense did a nice enough job. The bigger story to me is, what do you do with plan B, right? Thompson goes down. What do you go to? 6 targets, 1 catch for Palmer, right? I mean, it's not ideal, but how do you make some chicken salad? And I just thought Nebraska's play calling against a really good defense seemed off today, and there was really no settling in. I don't know why they didn't switch up and try Smothers instead of Purdy. Purdy's got a lot of athleticism and a lot of talent, fellas, but the thing that's kept him off the field, at least at Nebraska, has been turnovers, and you get a gift of a fumble recovery, and you can't turn that over. You can't fumble, or you can't throw the pick like Nebraska did. You could have got maybe a field goal there, and you just didn't have any rhythm. A lot of that was Illinois, but you didn't have any consistency. It seemed like Grant could have got lathered up and going, but when push comes to shove, Nebraska's identity under Whipple, I'm not knocking him, I'm just saying he just doesn't want to run the football that much.
That's the point. That's the point I made earlier. He's more about the pass versus the run.
And Nebraska just needs to get it figured out. They got to figure it out long term and be better prepared if and when Thompson goes down again. We watched him pretty closely, fellas, running off the field. And he wasn't bandaged up. There wasn't a brace on it. It looked pretty stiff. I mean, it wasn't waving his right arm around or anything like that. But we'll see if he's good to go or not for next week. But if Nebraska could have got a break, they did in that third quarter with the fumble. It was there, but you can't go -3 in turnovers against a team like Illinois, and that's what it is. 13 points off of 4 turnovers is really, quite honestly, an incredible job by the Nebraska defense.
Yeah.
But it was just not to be today, and it was 2 heavyweights, figuratively, not literally, but just hugging it out after round 10 in that second half.
And to your point, you and Jeff both, Whipple's that's what he does. He throws the football around. He doesn't want to run the football, but I don't think that was a knock against him today, because from what I saw with my eyes, I don't think Nebraska really stood a chance running the football. Illinois' defense was fast and flying around, and after about the first quarter, especially once Thompson left the football game, Illinois knew they could stack the box, and there was no threat of the pass. So the running game wasn't going to work for you. It was balanced before Thompson left the football game. I liked what the offense looked like, because Thompson, he wasn't super efficient through the air, but he was finding guys when he had to, and had that long touchdown throw to Travis Vogelbach. It really felt like he was settling in, and the running game was there somewhat as long as there was a threat of the pass. But as soon as you lost the threat of the pass, there was just nothing you can do. And I mean, I don't think Whipple's wrong. I think that the best chance Nebraska has to win football games this year is to throw the football, because I can't trust that offensive line one bit.
Well, the problem was, though, you had 4 completions of the 11 by your backup. So if you're going to throw the football, if that's what you do and do best, you better have a backup that can come in and do it at a better rate. And I get your point. You're right, Elijah. You're going to need to sprinkle in some run versus lean on the run. But it looked like Nebraska's offensive line, they gave up a couple of sacks when it was garbage time. But the O-line wasn't as awful as I guess it could have been against that front 7. Secondary is phenomenal for Illinois. They blanketed Palmer. Casey got a bit greedy early in that first half with a couple of throws. That first interception, he had Palmer for a 7-yard gain versus forcing it into, a 4-person coverage against Vogelek. In the same sense, though, man, oh man, you had a money play to Alante to get you out of the shadow of your goal line. You had a great little dump off to Brewington. That was incredible. And then you had the what could have been, right, to Ramir. You had the what could have been to Ramir. Nebraska's offense was humming, had Illinois off balance. And then you go 18 plays, 36 yards from that point on after the drop by Ramir. That's a 14-point swing, and that was extremely costly. You've heard a lot of questions. Where's Ramir? Where's Ramir? Well, he's been dinged, and that's something he'll make nine times out of 10. He'll make that catch. They got to get him ready and keep going back to him because future matchups, he can be nice out of the backfield. He'll make that play the next time.
Think of how the complexion changes in this football game, though, if Ramir Johnson makes that catch. Because then Casey Thompson isn't forced to drop back in a distressed situation where Illinois is pinning their ears back on third down. They're not bringing the pressure after him. He's not getting injured. He's not throwing that pick and setting up Illinois in scoring territory, all because of that one play. I don't want to put it all on Ramir because that happens in football. It's how you respond to adversity. But just think of how different this game could be if Ramir Johnson catches that football. Then Nebraska's humming. They might have a drive going. Casey Thompson maybe never gets hit on that play, doesn't get injured, doesn't go to the sideline, doesn't throw the pick, doesn't set up Illinois to take the lead. How different this game could be if Ramir Johnson makes that. And it's all hypothetical. It doesn't matter now. But, man, I think that's one of those plays you look back on if you're a coaching staff and you're just kicking yourself. You can make that one play. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say Nebraska could be in a much better position to win this football game if Ramir Johnson makes that play because then your offense is humming down the field a little bit and you're in good shape and maybe Casey Thompson never leaves the football game.
Well, that's just kind of the storyline of this game, too. It's just what could have been. What could have been with Casey Thompson? What could have been if Ramir catches that pass, right? And again, it feel like that's kind of a drum that's been beat for quite a while here in Huskerland as well. Just thinking about what didn't happen, and as you said, Elijah, how do you respond to that adversity? If Johnson makes that catch, how does game that out from there on out? And even if he drops it, which he did, I mean, what's different about the play after? How could have that been different? Now, obviously, the protection could have been a little bit better. Casey Thompson doesn't throw his hand onto somebody's helmet, but
Well, we've lost Connor. Connor's connection.
Well,
seems
we
like
must have
dropped
lost
out.
Connor for some weird reason.
Well, we are briefly not on the air on ESPN Lincoln, though. So for all listeners in the stream, you're getting exclusive content right now. And it sounds like we have Connor back.
And we get Connor back. Yeah, we got Connor back. Connor, go ahead and finish your thought.
Sorry, I lost him for a second. It was just I just went on to say that is a sequence, as well as the interception by Chubba Purdy, as you mentioned, Jeff. Just two big sequences in that game that, again, if they work out in Nebraska's favor, who knows what happens? Chris Schmidt, he said it was a 14-point swing. It's again, what could have been if that goes the Big Red's way.
Well, and again, the Purdy interception was by far the biggest dagger into the momentum that Nebraska was trying to regain. There was no way they were going to recover from that because, again, your top quarterback's out. We won't know the status officially on his situation. We do have Mickey Joseph. I think his presser, I think it's maybe wrapping up here, and we'll get to that here as soon as we can to get his comments about the game. But now, as we've talked about already here, you got to have that plan B ready to go. And, is it going to be Logan Smothers or is it going to be Chubba Purdy? And is this going to be a come to Jesus meeting with Mark Whipple to say, hey, we need to get a guy like Smothers who has a little bit more experience than Chubba Purdy involved in the offense. And then once we probably get into a comfort zone, maybe throw him in on a few plays. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. But again, the experience factor really comes into play here against a really high-powered team in Illinois this afternoon. And Chubba Purdy, facing a little bit of pressure there. I mean, you got to come in there. You got to pick up all that slack that's been left, and you commit a turnover. And Logan Smothers was in there for 2 or 3 plays. That was about it, and then he was out.
Nebraska's just not real comfortable with their backups, clearly. I have no doubt that the preparation was good. You just had some uncertainty with, how are you going to try and tag this Illinois team? You tried. Nebraska didn't do real well. 1.9 on first downs. That's what they averaged yardage-wise, fellas. And Nebraska really struggled. They were in a lot of second and longs, third and way too longs. They didn't do well, with the exception of the Delonte Brown pass on first down. Throwing the football. They tried to go deep a couple times in that first half, and it didn't work out for them, and that put them behind the sticks. So Nebraska played well enough defensively to give you, all right, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of hope the rest of the season aside from Michigan. Let's zoom out and go big picture here for a minute. And Nebraska did enough defensively. Can they hold up? Absolutely not if they don't get help offensively. What can you figure out between now and in Minnesota next week to go get a win, right? You got to figure out, all right, is it going to be more quarterback run with Chuba, or is it going to be Smothers? Because you could have dinked and dunked throwing the football, I believe, with Smothers, right? Rolling him out, the threat of the run. He's a little more physical runner. You could have done, the passes to Brewington and Vokalek, they weren't long throws. They were 8, 10, 12-yard little dump-offs. Now, Vokalek's was a little longer, but you get my point. It wasn't chucking it deep to Palmer.
And I think that I agree with you, Chris, because I think that's what you need to have. You need to have an experienced guy like Smothers, who is very much capable of throwing those short passes to get you maybe 10 or 12 yards to move the ball upfield or downfield, and then on occasion throw a run play in where he's involved, let him get some yards, try to advance the sticks. I think if you play that way, good things could happen with this Nebraska offense, especially if you're not going to have Casey Thompson at all next week.
Numbers to get in here on Real Red Reaction presented by Currency. 466-3776, 466-3776. Can also chime in on ESPN Lincoln's Twitter, Hail Varsity Radio's Twitter, at HVarsity Radio, and also in the StreamYard. You can send your comments that way. Guys, am I crazy? But this could have been a lot worse.
It could have been, yeah.
It could have been. It wasn't pretty at all. It was a tough loss. You had no answer.
You can say it. You can say it wasn't pretty at all.
Thank you. Tip your waiters. Try the veal. Thank you, Elijah.
If I have my Miller Lite can, I'd throw it at you.
The afternoon
better not be full.
No.
JP is. Are you being escorted out, or are you just walking down the hallway?
No, legit, the presser is over. They managed to get a couple players and head coach Mickey Joseph, and that was about it. There wasn't much anybody wanted to say about this game.
Somber mood in there, JP. I can assume it's a somber mood at my house right now. I believe my roommates may still be asleep after that fourth quarter. Yeah, no, it was a lot of formulaic answers. We got to look at the tape. And we'll see what happens with that. Coach Joseph says he is confident in Chuba and Logan being the starters if we need to. He mentioned that Casey couldn't feel. He had tingling in his elbow and he couldn't feel his fingers, and so that's why they took him into the doc to get checked out. And they're going to look forward to see what happens and go day to day with Casey. And then try to get Logan or Chuba or whoever can lead this team next week.
No X-rays or anything?
What's that?
No X-rays done yet?
Not that they mentioned. They didn't mention that. They mentioned he was getting checked out. He was going to get checked out again, and they would know more by tomorrow.
Well, I wonder if when he went down, it looked like he was kind of trying to straighten out his elbow. Couldn't tell if it was his elbow, his arm, or his fingers, or his hand.
It was the elbow, is what they said when finally somebody asked him directly, and said that he was doing this because he couldn't feel his fingers from the pain of the elbow.
Did they try throwing a jersey on any of the Raiolas, asking for a friend?
They did not, but there was a question about should Richard Torres have just come in because we only have so many games left, and you can play so many games as a freshman without burning your red shirt. There was a question about that, and Coach Joseph shot that down pretty quick.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear from Mickey Joseph here in just a second on the postgame show. But JP, was there any questions about why we didn't see more Logan Smothers in the second half? That was my biggest thought watching that game. Chubba Purdy looked completely ineffective in the second half. We saw 3 plays from Logan Smothers to finish the first half, and I can understand if you think that's the better guy to throw the football whenever you're trailing in a football game, but with how ineffective Purdy was, I didn't see much sense in keeping him in the football game.
Yeah, the reasoning he gave was they were trying to run some option with Logan because he's the better option quarterback, and when that didn't work and they knew they were going to be behind, they brought in the quarterback who could throw the ball. Unfortunately, Chubba was just scattered everywhere. It was almost like, I don't know, it was the weirdest thing to watch him play quarterback. Although, again, he's not getting the best protection, but at least Casey Thompson can scramble and make something happen. Chubba could have and should have taken a couple sacks. Mickey mentions in the pressure, you'll hear that he even talked about throwing across his body. You don't do that. So there's a lot of things that I think the game was going a little too fast for Chubba.
Very fair comments by Mickey Joseph. We'll run some Mickey here coming up. Connor Clark is in, Jeff Motes, JP from 96 Kicks, Chris Schmidt, and Elijah Herbal in his Denver Broncos den. As we're Real Red Reaction for you at 466-3776-800-825-5865. Quick question. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask a question to the room as well. So if you have one, maybe we have the same question here. But my question to the room was, after watching this performance today, what's your thought on Mickey Joseph and his chances for the permanent head coaching gig? I think that's probably where you're going, Smitty. But after watching that game today, I don't think it completely killed his chances because you know what he has. But definitely, I think, stopped a lot of momentum that Mickey Joseph had going his way with just how lifeless this team looked in the second half.
Well, I think they knew they were hosed, right? Coaches and confidence-wise. I mean, defense kept selling out. I thought they played their ass off again. But offensively, you didn't have a backup plan. And sometimes that happens in football. Nebraska's not the first or the last team to get rocked when their starting quarterback goes down. But even so, I like Nebraska's plan to get Brillington and Vokalek going, right? Palmer was non-existent, came back down to earth today, but you saw more Alante. So I think those are positives. You just didn't have a second game plan for what your other two quarterbacks do well. And quite honestly, I think it's too small a sample size. You had one series. You had one series for Logan Smothers. He had one pass attempt. They got a great run for 8 on second down for Grant, and then the whole world knew it was going to be a quarterback keep. And they smothered Smothers. So, no, I would like to maybe after that second ineffective drive by Chubba to at least go back to the bullpen. You can, at that point, you can play merry-go-round and just see what actually happens. Nebraska didn't. So, I don't know. They'll learn from it. They'll go back to work. Minnesota's winnable.
Oh, Minnesota's winnable, sure, but it's not like Nebraska's going to be favored in that game by any means. Nebraska's going to have to do some serious work in the final half of the season to get one more win, and in my opinion, Minnesota's probably going to be, if I had to guess, somewhere between a 4 and 6 point favorite against Nebraska.
Yeah, I think they'll be done. To your question about Mickey's candidacy, I think you're going to hear something sooner rather than later on where Trev's going, which is fine. They were in this game, all right? It's a 16-point loss, but it wasn't an absolute drubbing. I was fearful for Nebraska fans that this thing would have turned into a rout in the second half, and to hold them to 2 field goals is impressive. As much as, the time of possession, Illinois almost had the football an entire quarter more than Nebraska. It was nuts. And a couple of long drives. Illinois also, man, they got real conservative. They helped keep Nebraska hanging around a little bit. They were not in favor of going for it on 4th and 1 with a good offensive line. They could have really put the game away. They kicked the field goal. They made the field goal that turned into a punt when they jumped before the snap. So Illinois played far from a clean game at all. They were just better at holding on to the football than Nebraska.
And it brings me back to the point I made earlier. Illinois was exposed offensively earlier in the game. By the way, Nebraska's defense played at that point, and Nebraska's defense played hard the rest of the game, despite the offense being virtually shut down, not being able to accomplish anything much in the second half at all, really. And so I think, again, Illinois is a team, they're good, but they were exposed a little bit. So there's a little bit of vulnerability to them, I think, from here on out. While we're at it, guys, do we need to get a break in and go to Coach Joseph's presser here after the break? Do we want to do that, take a break?
Let's get Meg's take real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
She jumped on with us here following the post game. Meg, what did you see? Do you know any quarterbacks?
I know the hunt is on, man. Okay, like you said, and I think this has already probably been touched on a few times. Illinois did play far from a clean game. To hold them to just 2 field goals in the second half, yes, that's good. It just is a testament again to our defense doing what they do, keeping us in the game for as long as they can until they start getting worn out because, offense isn't on the field as long as they should be to give defense any kind of proper rest to play 4 quarters of football. Offense just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. And it's frustrating. And I know listening to Travis Vokalek in that post-game presser, he said it's next man up. And nothing changes for us as far as anyone in the wide receiver room, which, that's the mentality. But you have to think that someone's mentality possibly changed. I'm sure Trey Palmer's really frustrated after getting 1 touch today. It was sloppy. It was sloppy all around. Unfortunately, it's not what you want to see coming off of a bye week. And, Minnesota, like you guys said, winnable game. Gonna be tough, though. So just not what we wanted to see at Memorial Stadium today.
And I'm trying to figure out how harshly I should critique this Husker football loss today because it was a tale of 2 different games from whenever Casey Thompson was in to when Casey Thompson left the football game. I think we could all see, especially early in that game, that there were holes and weaknesses within this Illinois team that were there to be exploited. I just think, especially once Casey Thompson left the game, Nebraska didn't have the personnel to go and exploit those weaknesses from Illinois. So while I can say, Nebraska had its chances to be in this football game, you got to give credit to where credit's due for Illinois. They played the brand of football that they're comfortable with playing. They played the brand of football that they've been playing all year long. And as soon as they were able to just sit back and the nerves went away a little bit whenever they regained the lead and Casey Thompson got knocked out of that football game, they could settle in and do what they do. And from that point on, Nebraska never really stood a chance. Nebraska was never going to go win a football game if it was played the way Illinois wanted the football game to be played. Now, I think in the first quarter, even into the second quarter, Nebraska was playing the football game that they wanted to play. And you could see that tightness, some of that nervousness coming out of Illinois, especially offensively. They didn't look like the offense that I was expecting coming in there. They looked almost ineffective at times, but as soon as they were able to take a lead and get back to what they were comfortable doing, it was over for Nebraska.
Well, just one more thing, too, before we head to a break. I know that it's tough to put together a whole new game plan for a backup quarterback, whether that's Purdy, whether that's Smothers, whoever it is. But at the same time, I feel like you could make the argument that Casey Thompson's been getting banged up all year in that pocket.
Yeah.
Not a little bit better prepared for that situation because obviously you don't anticipate that situation happening, but in the back of your mind, it could very well happen. We saw that today. And I think that, again, I don't want to knock the coaching staff or the personnel that hard because, again, it's tough to make a whole new game plan for a totally different player. but I feel like they should have been a little bit better prepared for this situation because I feel like in the back of our minds, we all knew that this may happen at some point this season.
And with that said, let's take a quick break here on the Real Red Reaction Show. Number to call to get in, 402-466-3776, 800-825-5865. We'll take your calls and comments here. Coming up after the break, we'll go to the presser after the game with head coach Mickey Joseph. After this on ESPN Lincoln.
Finding the right Medicare plan? Oof, no. Kind of like those dances my granddaughter loves making me do. But then I found Walgreens FindRx coverage. Lets you compare plans online, over the phone, or in person. Made Medicare shopping so easy. Plus, I found plans with low-cost copays. I can get down with that. Medicare annual enrollment ends December 7th. Find a plan that's right for you at walgreens.com/Medicare.
Let me guess. Unknown caller? You could reduce the number of unwanted calls and emails with online privacy protection. The latest innovation from Discover will help regularly remove your personal info, like your name and address, from 10 popular people search websites that could sell your data. And we'll do it for free. Activate in the Discover app. See terms and learn more at discover.com/online privacy protection.
My heart was racing just making spaghetti. I could have waited to tell my doctor, but I didn't wait.
I was short of breath just reading a book. I could have delayed telling my doctor, but I didn't wait.
They told their doctors and found out they have atrial fibrillation, a condition which makes it about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. If you have one or more of these symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness, this is no time to wait. Contact your doctor.
Brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
What's the best product I bought this year? Oh, that's easy. Salonpas pain relieving patches. The proven medicines in Salonpas patches reduce my pain and let me do the things I need to do every day.
In a recent clinical study, patients using Salonpas reported improved sleep, mood, and the ability to work. They had less pain and were able to reduce their use of oral pain medications.
For pain, I use Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Everyone's so busy, the full moon's coming. I'm scared my store will look like a ghost town. Hey, Joe Clemens here from Capital City Automax. I need to get live bodies in the door right now. That's why I'm helping you drive for $5. For a limited time, you can drive a nicer, newer car for just $5 down. Plus, trade in any car, dead or alive, and we'll help you go home in a nicer, newer ride with just $5 down. Are you terrified your credit won't get qualified? Relax. My one and only for the people credit approval process has the bankers moaning and groaning to keep on loaning, even if you've been turned down before. Pick out a nicer, newer ride and drive home today for just $5 down. Stop driving a car you hate and drive for $5 to feel alive in a nicer, newer car today. But hurry, my Drive for $5 event ends midnight on Halloween. My name is Joe Clemens, and I'm your dealer for the people. Boo! Come see us at Capital City Automax, just minutes from downtown Lincoln at 2000 West O Street next to Casey's. Call 975-8925 or online at approvedbyjoe.com, approvedbyjoe.com, www.approvedbyjoe.com.
All terms subject to approval. Some minimum requirements.
Keeping it real. The Real Red Reaction Show is uncensored and powered by Hail Varsity on ESPN Lincoln, 101.5 FM and 1480 AM.
It is the Real Red Reaction Show here on ESPN Lincoln, FM 101.5, 1480 AM, online at espnlincoln.com. We're also on StreamYard through our ESPN Lincoln Facebook and Twitter accounts. Same thing with YouTube. Also on our Facebook and Twitter pages for KFOR and Kicks 96.9. Jeff Moats, Chris Schmidt, Connor Clark, Elijah Herbal, Meg Reeder, and JP, all from Kicks 96.9 here with us on the show. We'll take your questions and comments this afternoon and this evening at 402-466-3776, 800-825-5865. Before we do that, let's get to interim head coach Mickey Joseph and his press conference following today's loss to Illinois.
Beat us twice. Questions? Right now, we getting him checked out right now. We just probably going to be day-to-day until I have more of them probably tomorrow after we finish with the doctors.
Mickey, the game got away from you in the final six and a half minutes of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Were you surprised it got away from you that quickly?
Well, I knew after when Casey went down, we was in, we thought we was in good place when Casey went down. After Casey went down through the pick, I was surprised that it got away that quick. Got away from us.
What is the nature of Casey's injury? Is it an arm? Right?
Yeah, I think it was his arm. He got jammed on the elbow and he kind of hit the nerve and he couldn't feel his fingers. His hand was numb.
A couple of interceptions near the red zone, and so for a field goal, how impactful were those missed opportunities for you?
That's big. We talked about winning the turnover battle and we didn't. We got to win the turnover battle. We had too many turnovers.
Went with Logan at first and then with Chubb in the second half. Kind of what was behind the decision process there?
Well, we wanted to go Logan because we thought we was going to run some option, and then we figured we had to throw it to get back in it, so we went with Chubb.
What were they doing to Trey Palmer? He just had one catch today for 1 yard. Did they do something to take him out, or was it more that you guys just couldn't get it to him?
Well, they mixed it up. We couldn't get it to him, but they were really handsy, and we talked to him during the week that they're just not going to let you run. So he's got to run through some of the contact. He understood that after doing the game that he had to run through it, but just some plays we just couldn't get it to him.
Was there a thought to go back to Logan in the second half?
We talked about it, but we thought we had to throw it, so we thought we'd stay with Chubb.
What did you see with Chuba and that was leading to some of the struggles that he had out there?
Well, he's just got to take care of the football. On the interception, he's throwbacks across the field. You learn that first day of quarterback school. Don't throw across your body. Don't throw across the field. Should have just ran the ball because we already were in field goal range. We already had points, and he understood that. After I got to get him. I got to prep him better. I got to get him ready better.
I do think you stood up physically with these guys because I know you preached that all week.
Yeah, I thought we were physical. I thought the defense played hard. I thought the defense, went at them. They're a big offensive line and they run the ball well.
Half, I think he gave 29 yards.
It went downhill. We got off the tracks second half, and like I said, we got to go back and look at the film. But I can tell you, they dominated us in the second half.
Mickey, how confident are you in Logan Smothers in the throw game?
Well, I'm confident in him, but I think that, if Wood wants to go with Chuba because we think Chuba throws a little better, let's go with Chuba. But we'll have to take it from here because we don't know what's going to go on with Casey. So it's a possibility you'll see both of them.
How do you feel like you established and stuck with the run game today?
I thought we had some runs, and I thought we missed some runs also. We got to do a better job of just creating more seams.
Is Torres a possibility?
Excuse me. Torres. No. Right now, Torres not ready.
I don't know how frustrating was it not to get Trey more involved?
Well, it's frustrating when you can't get, the guy that you need to get the ball to. It's frustrating, but other guys, we got to look at the film because I thought some other guys were open also.
We can ask Bush this obviously on Wednesday as well, but there were a couple pass plays where it seemed like they got really open on the two touchdowns. What did you see on those two plays, and what maybe couldn't you guys done?
There were some rub routes, and we got to fight through the rubs. We got to get over the top of it, or we got to fight through the trash to get there. And we talked to him all week about the pick routes, and that's the first touchdown was on a pick route. And we got to fight through the noise. We got to fight through it.
I know it's never just one play, but the Ramir drop, you had to probably feel like that was a play that was going to be pretty big for you.
Yes, Ramir. And to the kid credit, kid caught the ball all week. We repped that play at least 10 to 12 times, and he didn't drop one, and he dropped it today. But I'm not going to say one play lost the game for that kid, because we need that kid to play for us.
What do you say? You just mentioned you can't let these guys beat you twice. So how do you keep these guys positive?
Well, we just talked and said, you know what, we're going to come back. We're going to watch the film, and we're going to look ourselves in the mirror. We're going to be honest with ourselves. We're going to tell the truth like we always do on Sunday, and we're going to see where it went wrong at. We're going to fix it, because if we don't fix it, it's a copycat lead. They'll come back and hit us with it again next week.
Is the gap between Thompson and the backups that significant in terms of what we saw today? Is that then indicative of what you've seen in practice?
Well, I think anywhere around the country between 1 and 2, it's going to be a big gap. So Sam, that's I think it's a gap between them.
1 or 2 more.
How hard is it for a backup to get off the sideline cold against a really good defense and have success?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy, especially going against a really good defense and they're moving around and they play solid football. But we got to get him ready. I got to get him ready. I got to do a better job of prepping him during the week and getting him ready, and probably have to get him more reps, get a backup more reps. But sometimes a backup don't get any reps. He's got to get mental reps, and then he's got to go in there and do his job.
What's the challenge, Mickey, of coming off of a game like that that's so physical and then going right back in to this stretch that you're in? Minnesota won 31-0 today against Rutgers.
Well, it's Big Ten football. We got to come back and we got to go back to the practice field. We got to have another physical 2 or 3 days of practice and get back at it. I mean, we can't run away from it. We got to hit it. We got to go in and hit it first. We can't run away from it right now.
You were down, Nick, from last week. How do you feel those young guys stepped up at linebacker and all over on the defense?
Well, I'll go back and watch the film, but overall, I thought they played pretty good. I thought they stuck their nose in it, and they probably made some mistakes, but that's for, not having the reps that they normally have, because there was more reps. So we just got to go back and look at it.
If you have to go with one of those backups going forward, what can you guys do around them to support them and make their job a little bit easier?
Well, I think we got to protect them, and also we got to establish a run game for them. So we'll go back and look at that.
All good.
Thank you, guys.
There you go, interim head coach Mickey Joseph after today's loss. Nebraska falling to Illinois today, 26-9. As we continue on with Real Red Reaction here on ESPN Lincoln. Again, the numbers 402-466-3776, 800-825-5865. Jeff Notes, Chris Schmidt, Connor Clark, Elijah Herbal, Meg Reeder, and JP from Kicks 96.9 was with us. Not sure if he'll be back on or not. But again, you heard the comments that we were kind of talking about here early on in the show. And obviously, Mickey very much caring toward his players, very wants to get them motivated, keep them motivated. We've seen some good things happen with this program since he took over. Obviously, the loss today is going to sting. The loss to Purdue 2 weeks ago really hurt because they really competed well, both sides of the football. But you got a tough task in Minnesota coming up next week, which we've been alluding to as a winnable football game. Let's get your thoughts.
Well, I want to say this. It's night and day the way the defense flew around today versus Purdue. And look, Purdue was able to run for enough to keep Nebraska off balance on top of how well their quarterback played. Now, DeVito, I think, was 18 of 20 or 18 of 21, and he had 3-yard completions turning into 20-yard gains to tight ends early. But overall, man, Nebraska's defense flew to the football. How nice is it to have Reimer back? Reimers was so good. And Gifford played a great ball game as well. The corners were physical. They flew. Safeties were nice, right? And I just love the fact that how many missed tackles did we count today? Maybe a couple.
Not very much.
Like 4 or 5 maybe. But
Yeah.
I mean, Nebraska had not only 3 or 4 or 5 guys around the football, but they tackled well. Reimer's an eraser. That's a big key to have him back and healthy, moving forward. And you're seeing some of these guys come in and play and gain confidence. Mosai Newsom got snaps early in defensive line, right, for Nebraska in that first half. So if you're going to walk away from this Illinois game going what could have been, knowing how bad and one-handed your offense was, you can say the defense really outperformed a lot of, at least my expectations. They got put in tough situations. They tackled well, and they had team defense. They really set the edge well. I mean, just to be blunt about it, they did a great job. They didn't get outflanked, and they were a bright spot today for me. So, even in a loss, they get my game ball. Reimer, I think, finished with about 14 tackles. He was on pace to go Rich Glover. Didn't quite get there, but no, listen, take that with you into Minnesota. I think that's something to build on.
Yeah, and to me, as you said, like the task for this Husker defense was never to stop Chase Brown; it was to contain Chase Brown, and I think they did a pretty good job containing him. He needed 30 carries to get just shy of 150 yards, and you were never going to keep this guy to 50 yards rushing. This guy was always going to get his with how Illinois likes to feed him, and you wonder how many yards he ends up with if Casey Thomas does get knocked out of this football game. So I think Illinois at that point was feeling the pressure, as I've said a couple times during the show. You wonder how that changes things. And I think that factor made the Nebraska defense, at least I sit here and I have to sit back and I go, my initial reaction after the game was, well, the Husker defense didn't play well enough, clearly. But they were put in a tough spot. I mean, to play well enough, you would have had to hold the Illinois team to 7 points. That's how you're going to play well enough to win the football game. And they were never going to do that. It's rare to do that in college football as a whole. The only, I think, defense in the country that does that consistently is Iowa's defense. That in spite of an offense that is terrible and doesn't have a quarterback, which I'd argue is what Nebraska looked like today. So Iowa's looked like all season long. Iowa's defense has done that, and there's very few defenses in the country that can do that. And I think if you would have told me going into this game, if you would have told me this morning that, well, Nebraska would hold Illinois to 26 points in the game, I would say, well, Nebraska probably had a pretty damn good chance to win this football game. And I think they did until Casey left the football game. That was a big swing, and that's the big takeaway for me from this football game is A, how important Casey Thompson is to this team, and B, that's going to be the talking point moving forward is what is Casey's status moving forward? Because if he is unable to go next week or in the coming weeks, it's bad news bears this Husker football team. There's not much they can do offensively without Casey Thompson.
I'd say that's pretty dang accurate.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more that you can really go off of other than Thompson got hurt. And you heard Mickey say it in the postgame presser. There is indeed a gap between 1 and 2, and whether that you need him to tell you that or not. I mean, you saw it on the field today. So I think that is the biggest takeaway from today's game. There's not much more you can really add to that. Illinois is a good football team, obviously. They're really solid from top to bottom. But stuff that hurt the Huskers today, that's at the top of your list. Casey Thompson got hurt.
I do wonder, though, because, I mean, going back to that whole quarterback talk and how there is, yes, a gap between 1 and 2, and, yeah, that's generally the case. I am still curious, though, that, maybe the second half does look different with, maybe a couple drives with Smothers. I mean, I thought it was kind of funny, and we were talking about it up in the press box during the game. Like, you give Smothers a cup of coffee initially after Casey gets hurt, and then you start the second half with Chuba, which that's Whipple's guy. I understand why they went with him, and I understand Mickey's explanation in the postgame presser about why they went with Chuba. They needed to establish a pass game. Yeah, that's fair. I'm just curious. I don't know. Like, I just feel like if it wasn't working with Chuba, maybe what do you have to lose at this point?
Sorry, Meg, but what I'm curious about is from the ABC broadcast, we learned that Mickey Joseph told, I think it was Tom Luganville coming out of the tunnel, that, yeah, Logan Smothers is going to be our guy here in the second half. He finished off the first half, and he's going to be our guy here moving forward in the second half. I'm not sure if he misheard the name or what, but that's what he told Tom Luganville. Tom Luganville was on the sideline confused. He said, yeah, I was expecting Logan Smothers to start the second half. That's what Mickey Joseph told me. So I'm wondering what's going on behind the scenes. Is that Mark Whipple coming in and overriding and saying, you know what, I want Chuba Purdy to be the quarterback in the second half? That's my guy. And if so, is that where the blame lies? Because I think we could all see it, especially after that interception post-fumble. When you're down in the red zone, have a chance to get 3 points. After that interception, I said, all right, it's time to cut our losses. You got to get Chuba Purdy out of this football game, get Logan Smothers in. We never saw him again. I really want to know whose decision that was, because at least my read on what we heard from the ABC broadcast was that was not Mickey's decision at all who's going to be playing quarterback, because he didn't even know who's going to be the quarterback in the second half.
Elijah, I think that's true, and I think that was touched on in the post-game presser. It was a difference between confidence in Chuba's passing game versus Smothers' passing game, but I'm also with you. I'm going to probably go ahead and assume that was Whipple's call.
Yeah, I just want to know, why wasn't Mickey Joseph in the loop on that? And sure, you can jump in.
No, you're good. I mean, bottom line is Mickey deferred. Let's just read this how it is. Mickey deferred to Whipple. You're the OC. It's your call. And Whipple wants to throw the football. Got it. Get it. Totally fine. But you put your team in a bad position. Not going with how do we make some chicken salad with your Nebraska? Okay. Without Casey Thompson, you go with somebody that's going to take care of the football. And Chuba Purdy's not going to take care of the football. He hasn't done it in practice, and he didn't do it today. And that's an error that gave him that put Nebraska further behind the 8 ball. The reason you got down and had to start throwing is because you threw a pick at the 30 by Chuba Purdy. You had no Logan Smothers at all. So Whipple, I hope we'll ask him about it this week, and we'll get it figured out. And I get Whipple's comfort zone. I get it comes down to who's his guy. All right, he was in Purdy's living room before he even left Pitt. 2 days before he got hired in Nebraska. Purdy's his guy. He always liked Purdy, which is fine. It's okay. But you had a chance to still win the football game in the second half the way your defense was playing. And we don't know if it would have turned out differently, but it was just a flat-out mess with him running around. Mel Tucker's going to get launched. He's dropping F-bombs and screaming at the officials. This is pretty good. Sorry.
Okay.
No, he's staring down. He's going to, oh my dear God, he's going to put a helmet on. This is great. Sorry. He's just losing it. He's going to just drop his gloves like he's in hockey and go sprint across and find Harbaugh. It's awesome. But
okay, let me add on to what you were talking about there, Smitty. Okay, so if Chubba Purdy is Mark Whipple's guy and sees what happens, and you're trying to fight and claw your way back into the football game, why don't you improvise a little bit and go with Logan Smothers and do those quick dump passes to get downfield and occasionally win the ball? Why not? I guess that'd be my question.
He's made up his mind. He's made up his mind.
But still.
No, I'm not. You're right, Motzi. I'm just saying he's made up his mind watching Smothers throw the football. As long as he's been here, this kid ain't going to be able to do what I want him to do in my offense. And that's your reason. And it needs to be re-examined.
Well, if he's going to be stubborn like that, somebody needs to say something. The head coach, the interim head coach, has got to step in and say, okay.
He will.
You're not comfortable, you got to do something to move the ball downfield and get some offense going.
The time and place was not in the post-game press conference to call out Mount Whipple, all right?
Well,
so it's going to be a Sunday. It's going to be a Sunday morning pancake feast. Well, Mark. Maybe you don't need some extra syrup, cowboy. We're going to go with the running quarterback.
Schmitty, the time to do it isn't in the post-game press conference. You're right, but it's not on Sunday morning. It's midway through the third quarter when Chubba Purdy throws an interception. You go, this isn't working. That's the job of the head coach to say, you know what? I know you love this quarterback, Mark Whipple, but based on everything I have seen him do on the football field today, it's time to make a change. I'm the head coach. You're the offensive coordinator. This is my show. I trust your opinion here, but right now it's not working, and we preach accountability in this program. We said it with Casey Thompson earlier this year. Whenever he was making mistakes, what do? We put his ass on the bench, and we gave Chubba Purdy a chance to say, you know what, Casey Thompson, you're not above being benched. And whenever Chubba Purdy's going out there making mistakes, whenever you're still in a football game, if Nebraska scores points after they recover that fumble, you're still very well in that football game. Instead, he throws a pick, and it's the job of the head coach at that point to say, you know what, Mark Whipple, I know you don't want to bench this guy, but we need to give ourselves the best chance to win. And right now, Chubba Purdy isn't giving us the best chance to win.
And I'm going devil's advocate here. The game plan was not tailored to Smothers. It just wasn't. And
well, it clearly wasn't.
It's the why. I'm giving everybody the why. And it was the wrong. They should have had it ready. They should have had a contingency when and if Casey gets beat the hell out, beat up, to go, how are we going to go? Because they didn't think they'd make a living running the football against Illinois, period. So we're not going to plan to have the running quarterback yet. That's it. That's the long and short of it. But yeah, Mickey, another on-the-job moment, right? I'm sure that's part of before the breakfast with Whip, I'm sure that's part of the Sunday conversation with Trev.
And to my point there, had Mickey Joseph said something during that run in the third quarter, it probably would have made a lot more brownie points with Trev Alberts. Okay. That's what I'm saying right now, because the head coach should have stepped in right there. Okay, he just threw a pick. We need to get some offense going. We're still within reach here. We can't blow this. We're going to stick our other guy in, and he's going to pass the ball, short dump passes, 10, 12 yards if we can, just to advance the ball, maybe run some plays on the ground, and then maybe throw the ball a little bit further. And then once we get inside that red zone, let's try to punch it in, whether it be on a short toss or a run game. You know, to me, that's what should have been done.
And I can understand a coaching staff saying, from what we've seen in practice, we think Chuba gives us the best chance to win. I can understand that. But I can also say with certainty that everyone and their mother in the state of Nebraska saw what Chuba Purdy was doing and could see that that game plan, whatever they had cooked up for Chuba Purdy, was not working, was not giving you the best chance to win. Even if you say, from what we've seen in practice, we think Chuba is going to be better than Logan Smothers, if you see that performance out of Chuba Purdy, you're doing him a disservice by keeping him in that football game, and you're giving you're doing the rest of the football team a disservice by keeping him in that football game. You take him out and you give somebody else a chance to go make some plays, because it was clear that Chuba Purdy was not ready for the moment. And I'm not sure if that's a coaching problem. I'm not sure if he just hasn't made the strides that he's needed to do since high school to step into that moment and be fine. But he was not ready for the moment in any sense of the word. And I think you need to at least give somebody else a chance to see if they can start making some plays.
Guys, we saw Chuba come in garbage time, and what he do? He led a touchdown drive, but before that he threw an interception in the end zone. And this isn't Pinata Purdy time, but he's transferred. He didn't stick at Florida State. Keep working with him, keep developing him, keep grooming him. Don't give up. I'm not saying that, but it's obvious here that your offensive line blocked well enough today running the football, okay? And you get that dual threat quarterback with Grant. Maybe you just got to go ground and pound it, and that's totally 180 from Whipple. But he's got to adjust, and the question is, at 65 years of age and 40 years in college football, his rep is being stubborn. Well, is he going to continue to be stubborn, or will he shift here from Minnesota if Mickey tells him to? I don't think he's back next year because of health. Okay, I just don't. So, are you going to go out digging your heels in, or are you going to go out saying, okay, let's teach an old dog a new trick here with a running quarterback and a run-first mindset? He's great at developing quarterbacks. He's a really good OC. It just fell apart, worst-case scenario today.
All right, guys, big brain here, seeing the bigger picture. I've been sitting here thinking, maybe that second half game plan was just all part of the recruiting pitch to Dylan Raiola. They're like, let's throw some quarterbacks out there. Let's show Dylan Raiola he can start day one. We ain't got nothing in here. Let's have some
jobs open.
Yeah, jobs open, Dylan Raiola. You can reclassify, graduate after your junior year, and you can have the starting job next season. Maybe it's all part of the recruiting pitch.
You know, if they went to that length, Elijah, I think they should hire you as the head coach because you just thought
Or whatever.
That's some big brain football right there.
Yeah. Elijah, I want some of your drugs, brother. That's good. I love it.
I'm sure you can go places with that stuff, right, Elijah?
Well, I could go to Colorado, not anywhere else around here.
Hey, the numbers to call to get in on the Real Red Reaction Show: 1-800-825-5865 in Lincoln, 402-466-3776. Those are the phone numbers to call if you want to get on the Real Red Reaction Show. Of course, you can comment on any of our Facebook, Twitter pages. Some comments coming in here. I know we've seen these come in here for most of the show tonight. Al says, should have used Smothers when we had the chance, when we had that short field. And Brendan chimed in saying Whipple's offense is not a reflection of Mickey. So I think we've kind of alluded to what we've been talking about here in regards to what Brennan was talking about. Whipple's offense not a reflection of Mickey and what Mickey would like to accomplish offensively. I think what Mickey's probably trying to do is just, at least for now, be doing a compromise of sorts. At least today it sounded like he was trying to be doing a compromise and making sure that they were able to try to get something accomplished. But again, just with Chuba Purdy, it all backfired and it went south from there. Next week, it's Minnesota. And we've kind of hinted about this being a winnable game. I guess let's get everybody's thought on that. Is it winnable? Is it truly winnable for this team, especially if they won't have Casey Thompson in the lineup next Saturday?
Well, that's a big blow. If Mo Ibrahim is still in the medical tent, it's a hell of a lot more winnable. Minnesota's depleted. Their quarterback is experienced, but a manager. And their defense is still top 25 good against the run. So It is, but it's going to be about taking care of the football, finding out who you're going to go with at quarterback. And listen, I don't think the defense played really well today for Nebraska. It didn't seem. We'll see what's the cumulative effect of of being on the field a full quarter of time of possession, right? Because this is just step one of 5, and Minnesota's going to come in with a bunch of 6'8" just behemoths, and they're going to want to lean on them. So, how rested do they get up? How physical can they be in practice? Can they get some turnovers? But no, I think they can. Again, same game plan, right? Let's see if Captain Morgan can beat you and pray that Mo's out. At this point, if you're a Nebraska fan, I don't really think you care if Minnesota's full strength or not. Find another win, find a way to 6.
Well, what this season becomes now is you need 3 of 4, and when you look at the 3, I think we can chalk up Michigan as a loss right now. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I am. Michigan looks like a juggernaut right now, which means Nebraska needs to get wins against essentially the big 3 of the Big Ten West. The traditional, since the Big Ten West has come into power, it's been Minnesota, it's been Wisconsin, it's been Iowa. It's been those 3. So can Nebraska get wins against all 3 of those teams? From what I saw today, from what Illinois likes to do offensively, defensively, I am worried as hell. And the last time Nebraska was able to beat those 3 teams in a season was 2012, 10 years ago. Can Nebraska do it again this season? That's what this season becomes. If you want to make a bowl game, which some people say, well, this season's not about making a bowl game anymore. BS. This game is still about this season's still about making a bowl game. Every single season's about making a bowl game. Every single season in the past, however long it's been, 6 seasons, has been about making a bowl game, because that is the sign of incremental progress. That's the sign that you're doing better. That's why you watch football as a football fan. As a Husker fan, you watch it for more than just a bowl game, but you're watching for a successful season. That's what you want from your football team. And we set it out at the beginning of the season. The criteria for a successful season for Nebraska is to make a bowl game. So we're going to continue talking about it, because that's still the goal at the end of the day for this Husker football team and for the fans, is for the Husker football team to make a bowl game. And after today, it has become a serious, serious uphill battle to do that.
Yeah, winnable. I don't know about next week. Again, if we see what we saw today, no. It depends on Minnesota's health, as Schmitty alluded to. But yeah, you mentioned the traditional big 3 of the Big Ten West, Elijah. And you put yourself in a situation, you got to win 75% of the remaining games on your schedule. I just don't see it. And A, that sucks, but B, it's just kind of the reality of where Nebraska is at. Again, health comes into the picture now. And I don't know if I'm ready to go as far as say next week is a winnable game against Minnesota, because you still have to give that respect there as well for what they've been able to do up north for the past couple of years. I know they're not the same as they were, say, 2019, but I don't know if I'd go as far as to say that game, as of right now, is a winnable football game.
I don't think Nebraska gets out coached as badly as they've been out coached against Minnesota the last 3 years. That's a factor for me going into next week. There's a little bit better competency on the sideline from a game plan and from an adjustment standpoint, right? It was bad last year. It was really awful with 30 COVID cases, and they came in and won in 2020. And then they just absolutely out-physicaled you in 2019. So Fleck's a really good coach. He's a weirdo, but the guy does a nice job of putting lines of scrimmage together, right? So Nebraska's going to have to giddy up and be physical again for a second week in a row. I know I'm a broken record with that, but no, Nebraska will put a game plan together, and they'll be able to adjust, and they'll just have to out-punch Minnesota next week, whoever's playing. And they've got to be better than Iowa on offense next Saturday. They weren't today.
Well, quickly, and Meg, if you've got a point here, you can jump in. I just got a quick one here. What is the game plan going to be next week? If Casey Thompson's status is up in the air, that means you don't have a passing game based on what I saw today. You don't have a single backup quarterback that you trust to deliver the ball accurately and keep the ball safe. You don't have a running game because you don't have an offensive line. So what can you do offensively if Casey Thompson cannot play next week?
Do we know, though, I mean, if Nebraska would have kept or ran the football more on first down, again, we're playing butterfly effect today, but they didn't try and run it.
Well, as soon as Casey Thompson left the football game, Minnesota was loading up in the box. They knew exactly what Nebraska was going to do.
No, I know, but I'm saying, well, you can dink and dunk enough to, make it 2nd and 6, whoever's the quarterback, theoretically, and try running the football. See if your guys can fall back on their training, right? And because you still have Grant, you still have Ramir. Yeah, needs to open his eyes when he runs the damn football, but other than that, I mean, you have some options. Let's see. Mosi, did I offend you? What do you?
No, I'm just laughing at your analysis and what you're using for verbiage tonight. You called PJ Stuff a weirdo.
I'm just punch drunk tired. I've had one beer
I know, but I was going to ask you, in what sense is he weird? I want to get your take on that.
He's a used car salesman.
Yeah. You allegedly listen. People's marriage break up. I get it, but to settle down with Cinnamon, who wore high heels and was on the stage left. I mean, to me, that makes you a weirdo. That's it.
And then I don't know, from a football coach point of view, it's not a football guy thing to do to get Botox before you show up for fall camp.
No, you don't wear socks with your loafers at media days for 2 years in a row. I mean,
all right.
I mean, listen.
You guys sound like a bunch of mean girls.
He wins football games.
Well, hey, I'm not going to discount the fact that he's a great football coach.
He is.
Said that. But like,
I'm just saying,
bit of a weirdo.
Yeah, he's a little much.
He's eccentric.
Dude, he brought his lovely wife to media days, and everyone left once. I mean, that's what happened. Sorry.
That's funny.
It's true. That wasn't very professional. I'm sorry.
You know what? We need a little more off the cuff. All right, we need it. What else do we have?
Other than that, based on what I've been hearing in the show, we have pessimism because that's what I'm looking at with this game with Minnesota next week. And maybe Casey Thompson will be back next week. If that happens, that changed my perspective on this completely. But Schmidt says you can dink and dunk down the field, try to get the running game going. From what I saw today, I know Illinois is a great defense, but I'm not sure Nebraska has two quarterbacks that can realistically dink and dunk you down the football field. And maybe you can get some quarterback run going with Logan Smothers, and that can open up some things for you next week in terms of the running game. But from what I see, Nebraska, if Casey Thompson's not playing, they now have probably the worst starting quarterback in the Big Ten if it's either Chubba Purdy or Logan Smothers. That might be a stretch. We haven't seen all that much of Smothers this season, but I don't think either of those guys is going to be winning any quarterback battles in competition with the other starters. And then I think you have what is probably the worst offensive line in the Big Ten as well.
Well, different line. You were able to get enough against Iowa last year, right? I mean, put that game plan together with a little bit of a tweak and, and not a blocked punt to flip momentum, right? So,
but the problem is the person who put that game plan together for Iowa last season is no longer within the football program, and I don't think that's Mark Whipple's style. Mark Whipple's style is not to run an offense that is similar to what we saw against Iowa last season. Now, could that change? Maybe, but Mark Whipple strikes me as a stubborn guy that has his offense is going to find a guy that's going to run his offense. Not a guy that midway through the season is going to go, let's throw everything that we've done this season, let's throw it to the side, and let's try to bring back what we did against Iowa last season. That doesn't strike me as Mark Whipple. That strikes me as a very difficult thing to do for a football team that's reeling. So, and maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe Casey Thompson will be good to go next. But if that happens, and that changes my perspective completely, I think it goes right back to being a winnable football game. But if Casey Thompson's not playing next season, I struggle to call next week a winnable football game in any sense of the word.
They will get Mr. Miyagi ready for him. He'll be ready.
Well, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on, like we were talking about, if you're looking at Minnesota, you're looking at what Mickey Joseph talked about in the post-game presser, and that's creating more seams. I mean, Schmitty, you complimented the offensive line on today's performance. I guess I can throw him a little bit of a tip of a cap, but I mean,
it was way better than we thought, right?
True. I'm gonna agree with that, but it's still obviously extremely
It's still not
lackluster.
good. Yeah.
It's still lackluster overall. Ethan Piper and it also came to the podium and post-game presser and said that he was, happy with the performance. I kind of laughed a little bit to myself because I'm like, bless your heart, and I don't want to crap on him or anything. But it's still not what we need. It's still not where we need it to be. You don't create enough seams to establish a run game, and you're certainly not creating enough time for your backup quarterbacks to feel any sort of ease in the pocket either. And I think we also saw that as an issue after Casey Thompson was injured. So, I mean, we don't know. We're in limbo right now. We don't know what it's going to look like this week as far as, the starting quarterback situation, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to go right for next week to put a big old W next to it. So
Al chimed in on the Facebook chat at ESPNLincoln.com saying that maybe need to bench Whipple.
Well,
there you go. Right there. Maybe need to bench Whipple.
Mark, you're going to go on medical leave. Thanks for playing. Here's $2 million.
I mean, it's really tough to work around. I mean, Mickey's caught between a rock and a hard place, isn't he? He's an interim head coach thrown into the situation after, week 3 of the season, and now he has to juggle different personalities. That includes his coaching staff, and then you've got someone who is notoriously stubborn. We know that. Like, Mark Whipple is a stubborn guy.
he's auditioning too at the same time for the job.
Exactly.
And one of the things, as I pointed out to you, had a decision been made on what they were going to do for a quarterback the rest of the game in the third quarter after that,
right.
Then I think that would have been great to make some brownie points with Trev Albert to show that he can take charge when it's necessary. Otherwise, let the coordinators do their thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Connor, you got some sound advice here. What do you tell Whip tomorrow if you're Mickey, aside from pass the potatoes?
I mean, you got to show him what you think, because we talked about it earlier on the show. Mickey's the head coach in this situation. He runs the show, and I know he's supposed to trust his coordinators, but at the same time, if you think something should be a different way, that's up to you to make that decision. And I think Mickey will probably sit down with Mark and say, maybe we should have put Smothers in there earlier, or what if Smothers looked like in the first unit this week in practice instead of Chuba, and let's try that out. Or, just kind of go on a day-by-day basis. I don't know how they're going to figure it out. If it's up to me, I start Smothers personally if Thompson can't go.
Agreed.
It's about what we saw today from Purdy, because it looked like he really didn't have an ounce of confidence in himself today. At least to me, that's what it looked like. And B, Smothers, despite not seeing the field that much, he has a start under his belt at least. So he knows how to go into these games a little bit more than Chuba does, and he can try and perform. And we talked about the Iowa game last year, kept you in the ball game. He gave you a chance to win the ball game. So if it's me and Thompson can't go, I'm starting Logan next week and see what happens.
I think Mickey needs to give Whipple the big old bless your heart, but let's explore our options a little bit. And my heart wants to really be on Whipple's side. He was offensive coordinator for Pitt, who worked right alongside my starting quarterback in the NFL, Mr. Kenny Pickett. So my heart wants to be on his side, but man, I don't know. I think Mickey needs to, and I'm sure it'll be addressed this week, but maybe some overruling needs to take place this week.
I'll chime in here really quick, and I still think Logan Smothers would be your guy to go with at least to start out against Minnesota next week. And I'd also add one more thing for pancake breakfast tomorrow. Do not bring the boysenberry. Leave the boysenberry out.
Listen, you either go banana, chocolate chip, or blueberry.
I'm maple, man. I'm maple syrup all the way.
You
Hell
have a
yeah.
pancake.
You don't like chocolate chip pancakes?
No, man. No, I'm just regular
You
pancakes.
even?
Okay, I like
Do you hate
blueberry
puppies
pancakes.
too?
Chocolate chip pancakes is
I got a
way
puppy in
too.
the other room.
Chocolate chip pancakes are just way too desserty to start the day. It's one thing if I have a chocolate chip pancake after
All
dinner,
right.
that's fine. But to start my day with a chocolate chip pancake, maybe I'm just not a huge chocolate guy. That's potentially it. But it just it sounds like the worst way to start my day. Chocolate, like blueberry, it's my fruits. It tastes like
I go
I'm getting a
blueberry
healthy start
first
to my
as
day.
well.
Like
But
I'm going to tell you right now,
second.
I don't need this negativity in my life right now. I don't like it. I don't like what's happening.
I hate to interrupt this conversation, but we have Matthew on the line.
All right, Matthew.
Start
let's go to
talking
you.
some football.
Hello.
Matthew, you're on the air. Go ahead.
You got us, Matthew?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I kind of want to defend the earlier caller. Am I on the show?
Yep.
About the triple option, I understand it's a relic of the old ages, but if you look up, and you guys are talking about the service academies, go look up how many times Navy has been to a bowl game in the past 10 years. They play Power 5 teams. They play Notre Dame. And do you think it would have been better or worse with this, Scott Frost offense, or if we would have went back to the triple option? I'm not suggesting we should go back to that, but watching today's game, Bielema's offense and the physicalness I was saying, this is Nebraska watching Illinois. You don't have to go out back to the bone or the triple option, but sometimes you guys talk that down, and I'm like, how could it have been worse over the past couple of years? That's my only question. So,
Matthew, thank you for the call.
Yeah, thank you for the call, Matthew. Appreciate it. We're the triple option.
But one thing I'll say about the triple option is why it's become ineffective, and I'm not sure we talked about the triple option in this show, but we'll roll with it. One of the reasons it's become so ineffective is because of the fact that speed on defense has become a premium over the past couple of years, not only in college football, but in the NFL. In order to get to the NFL, you need to have speed with your defense in college. And that sideline-to-sideline ability from linebackers has made it very difficult for the triple option. It can still work, yes, but for the most part, it's just not something you want to run. And then also you're going to struggle to recruit as well with the triple option. There's other ways to be physical with your offense. You're going to struggle to recruit your offense to the triple option, and if you don't out-athlete the team on the other side of the ball, speed on defense has gotten to such a point now in college football that if you don't seriously out-athlete this other team, like I think Nebraska did in the 90s, Nebraska out-athleted every single defense they played just out. If you can't do that now in college football, what you're going to struggle to do with trying to recruit to a triple option system, you're going to really struggle to make that work.
Listen, I'll say this. Option football can cover your offensive line's ass, okay? You can make an average to bad offensive line a little bit more problematic to deal with because it's an 11-on-11 concept. Your point's well taken, Elijah, about the service academies and the struggle to recruit if it's your main offense. But listen, if Nebraska wants to find a way to win, and this is about Mickey's campaign, right? So you just go with what your guys can do best. Running the football, running option, it's tough to prepare for. That's the other thing because no one else does it. So that's the other part of it. It's the curveball, right? It's there's that team that runs option, and what are we supposed to do? So there's pros and cons to it, but option football can help out an offensive line that is struggling, and you got to go with the running quarterback next week if you have any prayer of winning.
I think we're all in consensus about this, for what we've been discussing here for like the last half hour or so. But I think that should do it tonight for Real Red Reaction. I think we've aired out everything we could about today's game with Illinois and Nebraska. Number 17, Illinois coming in with a 26-9 win over Nebraska at Memorial Stadium here in Lincoln. We'll do the Real Red Reaction show again next week here on ESPN Lincoln and on our social media platforms for ESPN Lincoln, KFOR, and Kicks 96.9 as we will react to the Minnesota game again. That's coming up next Saturday. Nebraska's next opponent, again, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And be sure to join us for reaction to that game as well after that game is completed. And we'll have that right here definitely on our social media accounts for Facebook and Twitter for all of our stations. So for Connor Clark, Elijah Herbal, Chris Schmidt, Meg Reeder, JP, I'm Jeff Moats. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We'll talk to you again soon. You've been listening to the Real Red Reaction Show here on ESPN Lincoln.